Hello, my friends. It's Monday, September 22nd, 2025, and I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, your Red State refugee. And welcome to the Radical Russ Show, your home for pothead political punditry. Coming to you from Rolla J Studios in Southern Oregon. On this week's Smoke Session, Jimmy Kimmel gets fired for something he did not say, and the worst people in the world agree with me that it's a bad thing. Republicans go full mission from God in turning Charlie Kirk into a MAGA martyr. Democrats urge Trump to play nice and negotiate a budget in good faith, while Republicans take bribes, assault Democrats, disappear migrants, murder fishermen, and openly plot Democratic destruction. Jim Crow is back on the train to Connecticut, the airwaves in Virginia, and a tree in Mississippi. Fox host Brian Kilmeade says, "Kill the homeless." Candace Owens says Brigette Macron's a man, and 2 Congress members call on the institutionalization of transgender people. And we'll have time for my radical rant on why we are America. But before we get to all the serious political stuff, we got time for 3 quick hits. First of all, we have to say rest in peace to the legend Robert Redford, who passed away this week. And apparently, from all word that we received, it was peaceful in his bed, surrounded by loving family. What an amazing life this man led. People were recounting all their favorite Robert Redford moments, Redford films, and, you know, there are just so many to talk about. I'm not even going to go into it. I appreciate the man for not only being a successful actor, but being such a prominent activist for the environment. He did so much to try to help save the planet that we're living on. Rest in peace to Robert Redford. I also got word that apparently tomorrow, September 23rd, Tuesday, tomorrow is the Rapture. Yes, the Christian Rapture, as foretold in the book of Revelation. Apparently, all of the pious are going to be ascending to heaven tomorrow. So if you're out on the roads, I urge you to watch for those cars that have the little Jesus fish on them, because the next thing you know, they might not have a driver. Well, massive wreckage on the freeways, but and I wonder, how does the property go after that? Like, after all the religious folks, all the good Christians ascend into heaven, do we get their stuff? I mean, some of these guys got some nice houses, some boats. I mean, I got dibs on the guys up there in the hills up in Grants Pass. They got a little nice place up there. I would love to see that. So, yeah, the Rapture happening tomorrow, Tuesday, September 23rd. And what else is happening on Tuesday? Oh, yeah, the last special election being held to fill an empty Democratic seat in the House of Representatives due to one of their members dying is happening on Tuesday, September 23rd. And that election and seating of that Democrat would then provide the 218th and final needed signature on the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. You thought you could pull a Rapture to get us to forget about the Epstein files? Yeah. And yesterday, speaking of holidays, yesterday was Earth, Wind, and Fire Day for all those who celebrate. Do you remember the 21st night of September? I certainly do. Saw Earth, Wind, and Fire live in concert at Caesar's Palace in 1999. One of my favorite concerts ever. Also saw them at Cactus Pete's in Jackpot, Nevada, which is the weirdest place in the world to see Earth, Wind, and Fire. Because, like, Jackpot, Nevada is this little border town on the northern Nevada border with Idaho. It's 45 miles south of Twin Falls. And, folks, it's literally like 4 casinos and a golf course and a gas station. Like, there's nothing else there, right? And so Earth, Wind & Fire played this outdoor concert, and it was really good. And afterwards, I was able to meet Ralph Johnson, Verdine White, and Philip Bailey. I've posted the pictures up on my Blue Sky account at RadicalRuss.com if you'd like to see them. And one other quick hit. I just want to thank you, the listener, for listening to this podcast. There's, gosh, at least a couple dozen of you out there. Boy, I've been podcasting now for almost 20 years. I started off in cable access, if you want to talk broadcasting, way back in 2005. So I've been doing this for a while, talking in front of microphones, and reached some amazing heights. I was on XM satellite radio and AM 620 KPOJ in Portland, a 50,000 watt AM station. And I was Normal's podcaster for 4 years, and an independent marijuana podcaster for 5 more after that, and used to have listener lists of in the thousands of people that were listening. And now I'm retired, and it's kind of just a hobby. And I don't know, there's maybe a few dozen of you out there listening, and every now and then I get a note online or an email, someone saying thanks, keep it up, love hearing from you. So if you're one of those long-time listeners from all the way back in my marijuana days, I want to thank you for sticking with me as I do this politics thing. I kind of feel like the marijuana issue's almost played out, as it were. I know there's still a whole lot of other states to legalize, but those that were going to legalize have pretty much legalized, and the ones that aren't, I don't know. It's going to take a while before they come along, but I think we kind of won that argument. 70% of America agrees with the legalization of marijuana, and most people see it as no big deal. It's gotten to such a point now that the term gummies now means weed. Like, gummies means weed now. It's like, Kleenex means tissue. It's just become so ubiquitous in this country, at least out here on the West Coast. So thank you for indulging me, allowing me to go off on this political tangent like I did back in the XM satellite days with everything that's happening to this country I love. I couldn't sit by and remain silent. I hope that my analysis and my humor covering these topics maybe helps us get through it a little better, and maybe I can provide a resource for you to learn more and get active yourself. So again, thanks for listening. To everybody except Barbara Boxer. Barbara Boxer blocked me on Blue Sky the other day. Former Senator from California, Barbara Boxer, blocked me. Senator Boxer, I love you. You were one of the good Democrats. Please take me back. Our main story this week, of course, is the FCC's strong-arming of ABC Disney through the threats from Nexstar and Sinclair that led to the termination, or at least the suspension, of the Jimmy Kimmel Live show for a joke that Jimmy Kimmel told about MAGA and their ideas about the killing of Charlie Kirk.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. Okay. He's at the 4th stage of grief, construction. There's demolition, construction.
So all this week, there have been reactions from both sides of the aisle on this terrible example of fascist censorship of voices that hurt Donald Trump's feelings. And of course, there's some good and some bad, and it's really kind of shocking to me which side each of those are coming down on, because The good reactions are coming from the bad side, and the bad reactions are coming from the good side. Let's start with the good side, the Democratic Party. We have this written statement from Leader Jeffries, Whip Clark, Chair Aguilar, Vice Chair Liu, Assistant Leader Neguse, and DCCC Chair Del Bene on the suspension of Jimmy Kimmel. So this is basically all of your House leadership from the Democratic side. Their statement on the censorship of Jimmy Kimmel begins, quote, Brendan Carr, the so-called chairman of the Federal Communications Commissions, has engaged in a corrupt abuse of power. Okay, stop right there. The so-called chairman? What the hell is that doing there? He is the chairman, and he is chairing the FCC. He's not doing what we'd like with the FCC, but he is chairing. What the hell is with so-called chair? Like, what kind of insult is so-called chair? Anyway, he continues, quote, he has disgraced the office he holds by bullying ABC, the employer of Jimmy Kimmel, and forcing the company to bend the knee to the Trump administration. FCC Chair Brendan Carr should resign immediately. Donald Trump and the Republican Party's war on the First Amendment is blatantly inconsistent with American values. Media companies, such as the one that suspended Mr. Kimmel, have a lot to explain. The censoring of artists and cancellation of shows is an act of cowardice. It may also be part of a corrupt pay-to-play scheme. House Democrats will make sure the American people learn the truth, even if that requires the relentless unleashing of congressional subpoena power. This will not be forgotten. Okay, so it's a bad thing, and maybe someday when we get into power again, we'll look into it. But we won't do anything really now. I know there's a big budget bill coming up, continuing resolution that the Republicans cannot pass without getting some Democratic votes because of their own extreme freedom caucus. But we're not going to hold that over their head or anything to make them reinstate Jimmy Kimmel or do anything about the FCC or require the chair, the so-called chair, to resign. We're just going to make a lot of noise about it at this point. All right. But that's not the lamest response. No, I think the lamest response, we got to look at the late night comedians themselves, right? Stephen Colbert, fantastic response to this on his show. Jon Stewart came in on a Thursday when he only works Mondays and did an entire satire show, North Korea style, yes, dear leader kind of thing. Brilliant. Seth Meyers on his show, fantastic monologue, took the whole thing down. Recommend you go take a look at it. John Oliver's latest show, as usual, stellar. So who haven't we heard from on the late night scene? Oh, yeah, that guy over on NBC, the guy warming the seat that was once held by Johnny Carson, Steve Allen, and Jack Parr. Let's hear what Jimmy Fallon had to say in support of his fellow late-night comedian.
Well, guys, the big story is that Jimmy Kimmel was suspended by ABC after pressure from the FCC, leaving everyone thinking WTF. This morning, I woke up to 100 text messages from my dad saying, I'm sorry they canceled your show. I go, that's not me. That's Jimmy Kimmel. But to be honest with you all, I don't know what's going on. And no one does. But I do know Jimmy Kimmel. And he's a decent, funny, and loving guy, and I hope he comes back.
Wow, Jimmy. What a rousing defense of your fellow colleague and free speech and the First Amendment that this country was founded on. Ooh, boy, what a patriot. Jesus. I don't know what's going on. No one does. No one knows what's going on, Jimmy. Or are you just burying your head in the sand to make sure that you're not the next one on the chopping block, which, of course, Trump already said you are. He already said after Colbert got canceled that Kimmel was next. Then after Kimmel gets canceled and he celebrates that, he says Fallon and Myers are next. You're not going to be able to appease him. You're not going to be able to have him on and tussle his hair again, Jimmy, and try to avoid saying anything that's going to get you in trouble. But there were some good reactions to this, a number of them on the Democratic side. In the interest of time, though, I want to get to a couple of people that I normally wouldn't be on the same side with. We just heard from Jimmy Fallon, and of course, he took the job from Jay Leno, who is also notably apolitical and kind of wishy-washy and screwed over Conan O'Brien in various ways. But even Jay Leno had something better to say than Fallon.
You know, you don't get canceled saying popular things. You get canceled, sometimes, usually it's the truth that winds up getting canceled. So we'll see what happens.
Usually it's the truth that ends up getting you canceled. Well, that's a nice little nugget of wisdom from Mr. Leno there. But the one that really, really threw a spanner in the works for me was being forced to have to agree with Rafael Ted Cruz, the senator from Cancun.
He threatens explicitly, we're going to cancel ABC's license. We're going to take him off the air so ABC cannot broadcast anymore. And I got to say, he threatens it. He says, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way.
Yeah.
And I got to say, that's right out of Goodfellas. That's right out of a mafioso coming into a bar going, nice bar you have here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Okay, I think those atrocious accents of his are some sort of war crime. But besides that, Cruz is absolutely right. And this is where I think, they really messed up. FCC and Trump really messed up on this fascism thing, because all the stuff they were doing in the background, blowing up votes in Venezuela and taking bribes and all the criminal stuff they're up to, is the kind of stuff that generally floats under the radar of most people. People got jobs, people got kids, got to get the kids ready for school, got to go to work. People's lives are busy. Most people are not like you and me that pay close attention to politics. But they do notice when one of their shows gets canceled. They do stand up for freedom of speech. I've always thought that Americans are a little squishy on our rights, little squishy except for a few of them. Religion, speech, and guns. We get to worship how we like, we get to say what we like, we get to have guns. Most everyone in America is pretty strong on those civil liberties. So taking Jimmy Kimmel off the air in a clear act of censorship is going to raise people's attention. More so than all of the other acts of censorship that this regime has already undertaken. The canceling of Melissa Harris Perry, of Tiffany Cross, of Joy Reid, of Don Lemon, of Mark Lamont Hill, of Karen Attiah, all great black voices, columnists, anchors on these TV shows, silenced. And white voices as well. Terry Moran of ABC was out. Matthew Dowd out at MSNBC for his comments regarding Charlie Kirk. So those didn't really register for people, but I believe sacking someone who has hosted the Oscars 4 times is going to catch some people's attention. I did have to laugh at one of the posts I saw up on Fox that was entitled, exact title was something about fierce celebrity split over the Jimmy Kimmel firing. A fierce celebrity split. Like, oh, okay. So there's some celebs that are glad he was fired. Well, who would those celebs be? Try and guess. I bet you can pick out a few. Did you have Rob Schneider on your list? That's right. Deuce Bigalow, American Gigolo. The copies guy from Saturday Night Live, making copies. That guy. Yeah, Rob Schneider. Kevin Sorbo. You remember from Hercules, the prequel to Xena. Yeah, the Hercules guy. He's happy that Kimmel got fired. And, bass player John Rich from the country duo Big and Rich. Yeah, that guy. He thought firing Kimmel was okay. This is a guy who wrote a song that I used to play in this country cover band called Love Train, not the OJ's Love Train, but really doesn't understand why. What's the problem with politics? The whole color thing doesn't make sense to me. Who gives a hoot if you're red, blue, yellow, or pink? Yeah, these guys with John Rich here with some astute political observations here. And the other person on the big celebrity split, and a lot has been made of this by way of comparison, Roseanne Barr, which, by the way, the Fox story spelled her name wrong, B-A-R. Roseanne Barr. They've been bringing up the Roseanne Barr cancellation here. They've been saying, sure, Jimmy Kimmel went off the air because he said something bad, but remember when all you liberals got together and took Roseanne off of her own hit ABC sitcom just because she said Obama aide Valerie Jarrett, a black woman, reminded her of someone from Planet of the Apes? Remember that? See? What's good for the goose is good for the gander. They fired Roseanne for saying something. They fired Jimmy Kimmel for saying something. Well, first of all, Roseanne was fired in 2018. Who was president in 2018? I'll give you a second to look that up. Oh, yeah. One Donald John Trump was president in 2018. And it wasn't Donald John Trump or anybody in the government using the FCC to threaten the licenses of ABC to take her off. It was consumers of ABC's product deciding they were going to boycott that product and encourage others to, for her saying blatantly racist shit. Jimmy Kimmel did not say blatantly racist shit. He did not even say anything about Charlie Kirk, the person who was murdered. Again, diagram the sentence. So yeah, they want to bring up the Roseanne Barr cancellation as being some sort of equivalent example, which just shows how far off the rails they are on this particular topic. And speaking of comedians, because, Roseanne was a stand-up for a long time. Speaking of comedians, remember a while back we had all these edgelord comedians talking about how we need to legalize comedy. Comedy's not legal anymore. My gosh, you can't say a darn thing and you can't tell any jokes anymore without some trans person getting offended or some gay person getting offended. Legalize comedy. Where are those guys? What has Dave Chappelle had to say lately about this issue? Seems like all these comedians were all fierce, free speech, First Amendment warriors when it came down to their rights to tell some transgender joke. But Jimmy Kimmel, haven't heard a word from them about Jimmy, have we? And just one more bit on this firing of Jimmy Kimmel. So the way this came about, Jimmy Kimmel says this joke, right? The next day, Brendan Carr, this guy, the so-called chair of the FCC, according to Hakeem Jeffries, goes on Benny Johnson's podcast. And that's when he says all the things that Ted Cruz mentioned. We could do this the hard way. We do this the easy way. We could lose your licenses. FCC holds the broadcast licenses for these ABC stations, and they could pull their licenses if they blah, blah, blah. Right. After that podcast happened, that's when Nexstar, which is one of these TV distributors, one of these media companies that owns a whole bunch of TV stations, many ABC stations, said they just wouldn't play Jimmy Kimmel on their affiliated stations. They would just pull it from their particular stations. It was that then that convinced Disney ABC that they would give the old okie doke, they would go along to get along and just pull Jimmy Kimmel off of all their stations, their entire network, Nexstar or not, because they feared the backlash. So I just want to remind you how this came to be. How did Nexstar and Sinclair, which is another right-wing owned distributor, right-wing media company that owns all these TV stations, how did Nexstar and Sinclair come to own so many ABC stations that would give them enough leverage to threaten Disney, one of the largest mega corporations on the planet? This was all brought to you by Bill Clinton and the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Thanks, Bill Clinton. And thank you to Democrats as well, because the Telco Act of 1996 passed overwhelmingly. There were only 21 votes against it total in the House and the Senate. 11 Republicans voted against it. 10 Democrats voted against it. Otherwise, it sailed through overwhelmingly. That's how crazy the 90s was. They had bipartisan consensus on removing any limits on how many local media corporations could own within a geographic area, how many stations they could own. You do realize that before 1996, there was a limit to that. There was this idea that, hey, we shouldn't allow capitalism to concentrate the ownership of all of our media because that's going to drown out dissenting voices. We need to have lots and lots and lots of voices out there. That's what the First Amendment's all about, being able to support many voices. So before 1996, we had rules that a company, a single company, could own a dozen AM and FM radio stations each and one TV station in a single market. So say Portland, Oregon, right? Okay, you can have 12 FM stations, 12 AM stations, and one TV station. At that time, and also, if you had even one TV station or one FM station or one AM station, you could not also own a newspaper in that media market. Yeah. Prior to the 1996 Telco Act, the company that had the most television stations in ownership was Westinghouse, and they had 13 TV stations total nationwide. So imagine a Westinghouse turning to ABC Disney and saying, hey, if you don't pull Jimmy Kimmel, we're gonna pull Jimmy Kimmel off our 13 stations. ABC would have said, yeah, go fuck yourself. Right? Do you know how many stations Nexstar owns? 197 television stations. Sinclair owns 294 television stations in the United States. These two companies, both owned by extreme right-wingers, and you may have seen the videos that get put out on Sinclair, how they distribute scripts to all of their anchors, and they all read from the same script. If you catch some of those videos out there, it's just amazing hearing them all say the same exact lines. We believe in free speech. We think it's bad that there's social media. All saying it in unison. So between these two, we're talking about almost over somewhere around 500 television stations in the nation between these two conservative, Republican-backing corporations. So, yeah, thanks, Bill Clinton. Thanks for the Telecommunications Act of 1996, as well as, of course, your comprehensive crime bill that added 100,000 more cops and turbocharged mass incarceration in the new Jim Crow in this country. Let's also not forget about the Clinton administration attacking the First Amendment rights of doctors in the state of California to recommend medical marijuana to their patients. They literally tried to shut doctors up, that they couldn't even talk about marijuana. Let's not forget about Bill Clinton's NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, which Ross Perot characterized would have a giant sucking sound of jobs leaving for Mexico, which exactly did happen, killing labor as a base for the Democratic Party and putting us in the situation we are now, where now the Republicans are the party of the working class. Let's not also forget Bill Clinton's don't ask, don't tell for the military. Keep quiet, keep in the closet, and we won't bust you. His Defensive Marriage Act to go to say, oh, yeah, we're all pro-straight marriage. That's bad. The gay marriage is bad. And, of course, the coup de grace, his intern grooming with his slick Willie that sandbagged Al Gore, the best chance we had as a president to do anything about climate change in this century. So, yeah, Telco Act, mass incarceration, NAFTA, medical marijuana, don't ask, don't tell, Defensive Marriage Act, Monica Lewinsky. I'm fine if Bill Clinton shows up in the Epstein files. Taking a look at the national scene, they had the funeral/Nazi rally for Charlie Kirk yesterday in some huge arena with icons indicating the text numbers you could send in for merchandise, you know, like any good somber funeral would have. And of course, they use this opportunity to lionize Kirk, not to say any of the things he actually said. And you can go to my episode last week if you would like to know what Charlie Kirk actually had to say. It's funny how in all these remembrances and tributes to a guy who spoke for a living and has literally thousands of hours of recorded content, they don't play very much of it, do they? Very interesting. But they had the funeral, and they are going on full Charlie Kirk martyr mode because this movement has been aching for a martyr. Their whole movement is built on faux grievance, this idea that everyone's out to get them, everyone hates them, they're beset upon all sides by enemies who wish them harm, when really, all we on the left want from these people is to just leave us alone, let us lead our lives. If we're gay, or we're trans, or we're black, or we're immigrant, or disabled, or whatever else, we would just like to be able to all live here, get along with each other, find a way to cooperate and communicate with each other. But that's not what they want. They want submission. They want dominance. And I want people to understand that where they're at right now, they're on a mission from God. Okay? This is holy to them. This is religious. This isn't politics anymore. They don't do politics. This is religious to them. They're on a crusade. It's a holy war. They're on a mission from God. And I invoke that thinking specifically of the Blues Brothers movie. Remember the Blues Brothers? How they kept saying, we're on a mission from God. And I love the Blues Brothers. I've seen this movie at least 666 times at least, right? I've seen the Blues Brothers so much I've got it memorized. And I love the Blues Brothers. Of course, you love the characters, you love the band, you root for them. It's a great little comedy, right? But think of the Blues Brothers for a second. If it were real. Think if it was an actual situation going down where you heard this ex-con and his brother had committed mass destruction in a shopping mall by driving their car through it, had been evading police, destroying police vehicles, and then no matter who's going after them, whether it's the cops, the Illinois Nazis, the Bob's Country Bunker Band, whoever's going after them, can never catch them because of all the miracles happen that when they're on this mission from God. The Bluesmobile flips over a big hole in the road, all the various miracles that happen throughout the show. The mystery woman, Carrie Fisher, shooting an AR-15 at the guy at point blank range and missing him, right? All these miracles happen because they're on a mission from God. That's where they're at right now. And think about how law enforcement, all the other people in the Blues Brothers movie would be stymied and vexed and pissed about what the Blues Brothers were doing, but they couldn't stop them because they were on a mission from God. That's their mindset here, folks. They believe they're on a mission from God, that what they're doing is holy and cannot be stopped because it is God's will. Now, the problem with the mission from God is you have to have someone to vanquish. You have to have evil that's trying to thwart your mission. And that's where we started hearing the minute Charlie Kirk was gunned down. All of their talk about they took down Charlie. They thought they could silence Charlie. They tried to take down the president. It's the first time in history that Republicans have been cognizant of they-them pronouns. Like I kept thinking, is this Tyler Robinson non-binary? They keep calling them they. No, they is us. They is us, the regular, secular American who believes in the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. They want us to be the enemy. Let me give you a taste of that. Here's Eric Trump talking about us.
They made the biggest mistake of their life. They tried to do it to my father in Butler. They tried to do it to him on a golf course. Now they did it to Charlie. And you have the law of unintended consequences, and they wonder why. They wonder why we won every swing state. They wonder why we won the popular vote. They wonder why they just lost an entire generation.
And the reason why this they talk is working on their side, even though it was someone raised by one of them that did the killing, a Republican, Mormon, MAGA, gun-loving family, is because they live in this magical thinking world of a holy war and a mission from God. And in this holy war, their enemy is Satan. And Satan, like Antifa, doesn't really exist, can't be easily defined, and you can't say who exactly belongs to them until they do something you don't like, and then you can say they belong to them. So the fact that that Tyler Robinson came from a MAGA family, gun-loving family, Utah red Republican Mormon family, means nothing to them, because you can be absolutely perfect, good, and wonderful, and then the moment you do the bad thing, now you're of Satan, and now you're the enemy. And Democrats are already with Satan and the enemy because, you know, they kill the babies in the womb and all that stuff. They let the trans people live, let the gay people get married. So they're Satan too. Their enemy is just anything they don't like. And anybody who likes the stuff they don't like is of Satan. It's that simple to them. This is a holy war. And unfortunately, Democrats, at least the ones in leadership, don't get this yet. They still think we're playing politics. They still think this is some secular thing we're talking about here. This is a holy war. They're on a mission from God. And the ones that aren't on the holy war side of things are more on the fascism side of things, which itself is a kind of form of holy war. You got Stephen Miller up there. Stephen Miller railing against them, the they, who is us, who is Satan, who took down Charlie Kirk.
And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity.
Of course, everything is projection with Stephen Miller. Us on the left, not being the ones who create. Are you serious? You on the one, out of one side of your mouth, you're always talking about Hollywood elites doing these terrible things, these terrible Hollywood liberals, these Hollywood leftists. You know, where they make things, where they create things like TV shows and movies, like music, like art, is all created from the left, my dude. Hell, even architecture to some extent. It's just, the projection is more than an IMAX theater here. It's just unbelievable from these people. And it just reminds me of something I heard this podcaster say the other day. Fascism is a temper tantrum disguised as a political ideology. This is a temper tantrum. This whole Trump MAGA 10 years has been a temper tantrum of the right recognizing that they are not cool, that they are the losers, that they are becoming the minority, that the idea of maintaining racial purity is something most of us find disgusting. They hate the fact that America is becoming more mixed race. They hate hearing press 2 for Spanish, that somebody might speak a different language in this country. They hate that they're losing the culture wars, that the attendance in church has plummeted, that all the church pews these days are filled with old people because the young people aren't going. They don't like the hatred. They don't like the racism, the misogyny, the transphobia, the Islamophobia, the xenophobia. The hate and fear that come from the right aren't popular and aren't cool. And they know this. And this whole 10 years has been a temper tantrum because they know they can't just preach to us about the Bible and expect us to say, oh, God said we should be homophobes and misogynists and transphobes? Oh, well, why didn't you just say so? They can't believe that we won't buy into the God fantasy, into the hierarchy, into the ordained nature of how things are supposed to be. They hate the fact that under a liberal democracy, given the choice of how to live, Most women don't want to put on, cover themselves from head to toe, not wear makeup, not dance, not have a checking account, submit in all things to the man, be pregnant whenever he asks you or wants you to, or forces you to. They hate the fact that when given a choice, people want to live a libertine lifestyle, that people like sex and porn and drugs and fun and partying. They hate that we won't be like them, so they're going to force us. That's what this is all about. That's what it's all about, trying to take down Columbia University and Harvard and all these elite institutions, these academic institutions. They really think that, well, if we could just be in charge, we could bend everyone to see the facts our way. People would be all for burning gasoline, and they'd be all for unrestrained, rampant capitalism if only we could just get them young. Instead of understanding the natural state of things is that when people are given freedom and liberty and education, when they're allowed life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that pursuit most often doesn't lead their direction. And that's okay from our point of view. Every time I hear these talks about, they want to kill us, they want to foment violence against us, they hate the way we live, they hate God, they hate America. No, we don't. No. All we want to do is get you health care. All we want to do is make sure your kids can get education. All we want to do is make sure that the public health is maintained through vaccinations and understanding science. If we are to succeed on the left, there'll still be churches. There'll still be religion. You can still have your organizations and your meetings, just so long as you're not burning crosses or assaulting minorities in those meetings. We want a world where we can all get along. You want a world where we can all get along too, but only if we do exactly as you tell us and what you want from us. And that ain't going to fly in the United States of America. They're trying now at Oklahoma. There's a bill in the state of Oklahoma to mandate that all the public universities in the state of Oklahoma must have a Charlie Kirk Memorial Plaza. Mandated. It's like what they did after Reconstruction, when they put up all the statues of the Civil War heroes to try to recreate the myth of the lost cause and to erase the ignominy of these traitors to the United States fighting to break up the Union to preserve the enslavement of Africans. They want to rewrite history. They want to recode the culture by force. And one other note on this, Boise State's coach, Spencer Danielson, who's a raving biblical literalist, he had something to say. He on mentioning the whole Charlie Kirk thing, he brought up the Martin Luther King quote. When Martin Luther King said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." That basic MLK quote. So I'd like to remind Spencer Danielson of a quote from Charlie Kirk, who once said, quote, "Martin Luther King Jr. is a mythological anti-racist creation of the 1960s, end quote." Time to take a look over to my left and see what the Democrats are up to. And folks, it is not good in the wake of all this Charlie Kirk stuff. The Republicans went and put forth a resolution to designate October 14th a National Day of Remembrance for Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk, National Day of Remembrance on October 14th. Why October 14th? Because that's Charlie Kirk's birthday. And you know who else's birthday it is? Coincidentally, ironically perhaps, George Floyd. Both Charlie Kirk and George Floyd were born on October 14th. And I know much has been made about how that quote, I even played it in last week's show, the quote about how Charlie Kirk said that George Floyd was a scumbag and we shouldn't honor him, etc. And I know us on the left, we start bringing up George Floyd a lot. So to defend, here's someone, an innocent man who was killed by the cops, 9 minutes, killed on camera, and his family had to see that. And then, of course, after George Floyd was killed, Republicans made all sorts of jokes about it, made light of it. But now that Charlie Kirk is killed, no, we can't make jokes, make light about that. And on our side, we try to bring up George Floyd as an innocent man who was killed by the cops to compare to Charlie Kirk, an innocent man who was killed by one of, not a fan necessarily, but just a MAGA kid. The kid of some MAGA, to be clear. And I want folks on our side to understand that bringing up George Floyd doesn't help us when we're talking to righties. Because George Floyd, in their mind, is not an innocent man who was killed by police. George Floyd, in their mind, was a criminal who was resisting arrest and on drugs. And if he hadn't taken the drugs and committed crime and resisted arrest, he'd be alive today. That's the way they see it on the right. They will take any issue that especially a black person has had if they're killed by cops and say, oh, well, see why? See why? Because he wasn't complying. He wasn't obeying. Never mind the fact that if that same thing happened to a white guy, they'd be up in arms. They'd be freaking the fuck out over that. So the George Floyd thing, it's a terrible coincidence this is happening, but what's even more terrible is Democrats supporting it. 95 Democrats in the House voted to support this day of remembrance to honor the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk. Now, the ones that voted for it say they were put in an impossible position because the resolution does two things. One, it honors Charlie Kirk's life and legacy. Two, it condemns political violence. And they didn't want us to be seen as not voting against political violence. Dems, when are you going to understand these people are not operating in good faith? They specifically put that in there to lure you in to supporting a man, to putting the Democratic brand behind supporting a man who demonized Democrats at every opportunity and whose legacy of racism, misogyny, transphobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia is long. And we've been playing those clips all week. What is the political thinking behind this? That there's some voter out there that if you voted against the Charlie Kirk thing, there's some voter out there who's so offended by that they wouldn't have voted for you? Really? You think a guy who is so enamored of Charlie Kirk that your offense against Charlie Kirk would cost their vote for you? Really? There was a chance that person who liked Charlie Kirk was going to vote for you, but then you wouldn't vote for honoring his legacy, so now they're going to vote Republican? Meanwhile, people in your base, trans, gay, black, immigrant, see you supporting an open white supremacist and saying, yeah, we ought to honor his life and legacy in words. As usual, Democrats chasing some mythical, moderate Republican swing voter that does not exist and costing yourselves 2 of your base votes that do exist. It's just insane. Now, I credit where credit is due. I'm going to give credit to all 5 of the Democratic members of the Oregon House caucus, the Democratic caucus from Oregon, even Janelle Bynum. All 5 of them voted present, which isn't quite enough. Some of the Democrats to get around this voted present, not for or against. Oh, so you're neutral in the face of homophobia, transphobia, blah, blah, blah. So you're neutral in that. You know what Elie Wiesel said about that? Neutrality in the cases of oppression aids the oppressor, right? Some other Democrats just didn't even vote. I don't know what's worse. Is it worse to vote present, that I acknowledge that I'm neutral on homophobia, racism, and white nationalism? Or is it worse to not vote at all? Like, I couldn't even be bothered to offer an opinion on homophobia and fascism and white nationalism. And kudos to the Democrats who voted no, which, by the way, was only 2 white Democrats. All the rest of the Democrats who voted no were all people of color, which Jasmine Crockett was eager to point out and should have. On the Senate side, it was unanimous. Just like every Democrat voted in the Senate for Marco Rubio to be our Secretary of State as they continue murdering people in boats off the coast of Venezuela, so too did every Democrat in the Senate, including Oregon's Jeff Merkley and Ron Wyden, voted to honor the legacy of a white nationalist. Shame on you, Senator Wyden. Shame on you, Senator Merkley. And I've called both your offices and let you know how I felt about that. So Democrats can't even present a united front in the House to vote no on honoring a white nationalist. And I imagine many of them are doing it because they fear for their lives. The fascism's already here. These people are thinking about, well, I better not vote for it. I better just vote yes to get along. I wouldn't want any death threats. I wouldn't want any people showing up at my town hall meetings and shooting at me. Then get a new job. Retire now so someone can primary you that actually wants to stand up for American democracy. So all this is going on. And meanwhile, our leadership is looking down the barrel of the next continuing resolution. There will be another government shutdown unless enough Democrats vote along with the Republicans to pass the budget. And the budget, I think, has already gone through the Senate, and it's passed already because, you know. But now it's going to be the House, and we're in the same situation we were a few months back, where the only power that Democrats currently hold is holding up the budget. Because there's actually some principled conservatives on the other side, these guys in the Freedom Caucus, that Mike Johnson can't wrangle to vote for his budget deal because of it exploding the deficit. Imagine that, standing for something and believing in it. So he doesn't have enough votes of just Republicans to pass this, so he has to get some Democratic votes. So this is your one choice. This is your one lever of power. So what are we going to do? We've got ICE. We've got these National Guard and ICE invading blue cities against the wishes of their mayors and their governors. We've got the FCC shutting down comedians and outlets and reporters they don't like. We've got murder on the open seas going on. We've got open bribery going on. With all of this full-scale fascism in effect, you would think that the Democratic leadership would want to position us in such a way that, okay, you're not going to get your budget passed unless you pull the troops out of our cities, unless you reinstate Jimmy Kimmel on the TV, unless stop with the fascism. But no, Schumer and Jeffries still operate in this world where it's just 1995. The Republicans are in charge. Democrats were just trying to work together on a budget. As if the right in this country, as if Donald Trump is operating in good faith, thinking, how in the world can we organize this budget to be best for the majority of the American people? I told you, Chuck. I told you, Hakeem. They're on a mission from God. They do not give 0.2 of a tick's turd about helping the American people. They are concerned about helping their billionaire buddies, about starting their religious holy war, and about sacking the U.S. Treasury for every cent they can get. In the face of that, Here's what we hear from Hakeem Jeffries.
The Republican partisan spending bill that they introduced is not clean. It's an attack on the health care of the American people that is continuing, and it's a dirty piece of legislation.
Health care. That's right. Healthcare. That's what everybody in America is all concerned with these days. You turn on the TV and everybody's talking about healthcare. Jimmy who? No, never heard of him. Charlie who? Who's that? Never heard of him. What? Boats blowing up? Somebody blew up some boats? What? Somebody's invaded our cities? There's guys with AR-15s and camo near the train stop? Yeah. But what about healthcare? Jesus Christ. They so badly want to keep this in this nice, tidy sandbox where it doesn't affect anything, doesn't rock the boat, doesn't make the donors upset, doesn't address any of the large-scale social and existential issues we're dealing with today. The best they think they can do is to, let's negotiate on the ACA premiums. Let's make sure Obamacare is taken care of. That little tweak around the edges so we could avoid having public option and Medicare for all and, a universal health care system like 32 out of 33 developed democracies have had, all of them basically except us. There's this entire class of donors and consultants giving the same advice to the Democrats that they've been giving since the 90s. Kitchen table issues, keep it about kitchen table issues. And then when they do want to run to one side on any sort of culture war issue, they want to run to the right. They think appealing to the right is the way that's going to help get more Democrats elected. This is a conversation here. Ezra Klein. So, Ezra Klein, who wrote the infamous piece, Charlie Kirk Did Politics the Right Way, the famous centrist here. Ezra Klein says that the more worried you are about authoritarianism, the more willing you've got to be to run pro-life Democrats in red states. Yeah, he's making the case that if you really care about Trump turning America into Nazi Germany, then you have to defeat Trump. And then if you have to defeat Trump, you need to bring on more voters. And to bring on more voters in some of these redder districts, that they're more pro-life, you need to run a pro-life Democrat. And Neera Tanden, who's another centrist advisor, agrees. She says, quote, "This is something people really have to take seriously. We need to expand the tent." Yeah, we need to be a big tent Democrat party that allows pro-lifers in. Never mind the fact that when you look through some of these red states like Missouri, like Kansas, I think there's a few others out on that list that have recently had referendums or initiatives or amendments dealing with abortion rights, that all of those initiatives have passed on the abortion rights side, some of them in like the 60% range. So you think more pro-life Democrats would help win those states that just voted for pro-abortion issues? It's time to get off Twitter. It's time to get out of the Beltway and start talking to actual Democratic voters in these states. Your idea that the way to defeat fascism is to nominate some candidates who will just do a little fascism and only on women during their pregnancy? How about standing for something? How about believing that, hey, there's absolutely zero laws that control what a man can do with his own body? Why are there any laws that control what a woman can do with her body? Whatever happened to equal protection under the law? 14th Amendment, much less the 9th Amendment. The enumeration in this Constitution of certain rights is not meant to deny or disparage others that are retained by the people. I would think sovereignty over our own body is a 9th Amendment right. So, who wants to negotiate? Ezra Klein and Neera Tanden say you need to run some pro-lifers. Amy Klobuchar, the centrist senator there from Minnesota, she's saying that we need to focus on high grocery prices. Did you know that grocery prices are higher? Yeah, Donald Trump promised he'd lower grocery prices, but he didn't. Aren't you mad at Donald Trump? He said he'd lower the grocery prices, and he didn't. First of all, Senator Klobuchar, does anyone need a little bar chart from you to tell them grocery prices are higher? Oh, gosh, I sure am glad she sent me this tweet. Otherwise, I wouldn't have recognized that a pound of ground beef costs more than the minimum wage in this state. And, Donald Trump said he'd do something. That's why we want to get rid of Donald Trump, Amy, because he's such a hypocrite. He says things and then doesn't follow through. Except for the fact that he said everything in goddamn Project 2025, and they've followed through on that pretty well, haven't they? They're about, 60% implemented now in just 8 months? They write down an entire playbook of installing American fascism. And Democrats couldn't make it stick. Media gave it a pass when Trump said, oh, no, not me. I wouldn't be doing Project 20. I don't know nothing about it. Wrote down their entire playbook and are actually executing it quite well. There's maybe something to learn from Democrats. How about having a plan based on an ideology and implementing it? Wow. Higher grocery prices. Yeah, that's what's going to get people to the polls here. Worried about, they got tanks in their cities, their TV shows going off the air, losing jobs because they said the wrong thing about the martyr. But yeah, we're angry about grocery prices too, I suppose. And let's finish this up, our look at the Democrats. Can't look away here without taking a look at Senator Chuck Schumer, who was on CNN with Dana Bash, who was bringing up the fact that we got this continuing resolution, and it's the only way Democrats can hold Republicans' feet to the fire. Vote no if they don't get what they want. Listen to this solid politicking from Chuck Schumer.
And I hope and pray that Trump will sit down with us and negotiate a bipartisan bill. That's how it's always been done in the past. That's how shutdowns have been avoided in the past.
And if he doesn't, I'm just confirming here, you will vote no. Is that correct?
We are hoping, Dana, that he will negotiate with us.
And if he doesn't?
So far he hasn't. And we've had 2 bills in the House and Senate, and neither of them have passed. Our Democrats are firm. We need to get something done to relieve the distress the American people are in.
Okay, that sounded like a yes, but you can confirm that, and then I want to move on. Is that accurate?
Yeah. The bottom line is we must get a better bill than what they have. Plain and simple.
Oh boy, thoughts and prayers. We hope and pray Trump will negotiate on a bipartisan basis to help the American people. And we hope and pray that Lucy Van Pelt will hold that football this time so we can kick it. Chuck Schumer, you waste of flesh. Donald Trump is not interested in negotiation. Donald Trump is interested in domination. And the one lever you have here is to say that you will vote no and that you will shut down the government unless you can extract some concessions from the guy. And you can't commit to that. You can't commit to shutting down the government. You still have this fear that there's some sort of political blowback that will accrue to Democrats if the government shuts down. Republican president, Republican House, Republican Senate, Republican Supreme Court, Republican popular vote victory, and if government shuts down, it's all the Democrats' fault. Insane. This just goes back to that analogy of how men, or the Republican Party is the man party, and the Democratic Party is the woman party. And we're in an abusive relationship with a narcissistic man at this point. And this battered wife syndrome that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are exhibiting. Oh, please, we'll make it right. We won't make you have to hit us again. Is pathetic. I once again call on anybody running for office in 2026 on the Democratic side. You put it out that you would vote against Hakeem Jeffries as leader, Kat Abu Ghazala, running in the House. You put it out there that you would vote against Jeffries as leader, you'll add another 10 points to your win. Graham Plattner, running for Senate out there in Maine, you say unequivocally you will not vote for Chuck Schumer as Senate Majority Leader. You'd add another 10 points to your victory. We out here on the left are so tired of being represented by these weak, poll-tested, focus group-driven, donor-guided, spineless-ass Democrats. We are calling for new leadership. We're calling for young, vibrant people who believe in this country and have some ideals and stick by those ideals, even if it means losing an election from time to time. Democrats have gotten so, ever since Ronald Reagan beat their ass 2 elections in a row, Democrats have been far, far too concerned. Oh my gosh, this might mean we'll lose. It might not be popular with people. We better only do things that are popular. No, you stand for something, you believe in something, and you bring people to your side. That's what leadership is. There's one more thing I got to get to. They're tightening the noose on D.C., which again, D.C. would be a state right now if not for Kristen Sinema. Once again, a Democrat who fucks over the agenda for Democrats, as usual. We could have gotten D.C. statehood and they wouldn't have to be dealing with all this with the troops in their streets and all the fascism they're having to live under at this point. But they're working on this new act. First one's called the D.C. Crimes Act. And the D.C. Crimes Act removes the ability of prosecutors to charge young people between the ages of 18 and 24 under lesser crimes, lesser statutes that apply only to juveniles. 31 Democrats voted for that. 31 Democrats agreed that we ought to treat young adult criminals more harshly in D.C., which you know what that means, black men. There's another one, the 14 Adult Act. I don't know if that's the official name. That's my notes. But an act to lower the age, at which you could charge a juvenile with an adult crime, to lower that age from 16, which is already too low, to 14. They want to make it so the cops can round up teenage black kids and charge them as adults and put them in adult prisons with adult sentences. Well, hell, if you're 14, if 14's adult enough to be prosecuted for a crime, then 14 ought to be old enough to vote, shouldn't it? Remember when we passed, was it the 26th Amendment that gave 18-year-olds the right to vote? Don't have my notes in front of me on the Constitution, but I think that was close. During the Vietnam War, there was a big argument about lowering the voting age from 21 to 18 because here were these 18, 19, and 20-year-old soldiers going off to Vietnam to die who had no say in electing or removing the politicians that were sending them off to die. You're going to put us in this war, we should have the right to vote against it. And sure enough, the American people agreed and we passed that amendment and 18-year-olds got the right to vote. So, I say if you're going to treat someone as an adult in the criminal justice system, then that person should have the right to vote as to how that criminal justice system is organized. Enough of this, you're an adult when we want to treat you harshly, but you're not an adult when you want to have some rights. Let's just set 18 as the age of adulthood for everything and be done with it. Now time to take a look over to my right and see what's up with the Republicans this week. And we have this announcement, a press release from the Department of Fatherland Security, which calls for the media and far left to stop the demonization of President Trump, his supporters, and DHS law enforcement. This hateful rhetoric is contributing to political violence in our country and a more than 1,000% increase in assaults against our brave ICE law enforcement. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said, quote, following the evil act of political violence in the country this week and 2 brutal assaults on our brave ICE law enforcement last week, we are once again calling on the media and the far left to stop the hateful rhetoric directed at President Trump, those who support him, and our brave DHS law enforcement. This demonization is inspiring violence across the country. Our ICE officers are facing a more than 1,000% increase in assaults against them. We have to turn down the temperature before someone else is killed. This violence must end. End quote. Okay, so Fatherland Security is upset that we are calling them Nazis and Gestapo and that Trump's a fascist. You just can't call people fascists. That's just the wrong thing to do.
Fighting against totalitarianism, fighting against a dictatorship. But 80 years later, if we are honest with ourselves, that very same totalitarianism is now here in this country. The very same dictatorship that our leaders were fighting, our greatest generation was fighting against, are now here in this country.
Whoops, I'm sorry. How did that get in there? That's a recording of Charlie Kirk from June 6, 2024, at the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, calling the current administration a fascist dictatorship. 2024. Gosh, who was president then? Oh, yeah. Joseph Robinette Biden was president. There's Charlie Kirk, your martyr, calling the Biden administration a fascist dictatorship. But yeah, Department of Fatherland Security, we really need to tone down the rhetoric here on the left, calling people fascists. And I can do this all day. I can pull up a litany of clips from Trump saying, rough him up, I want to knock him out, don't be too nice to him. All the encouragement of political violence that's going on out there. And so Fatherland Security, if you don't want people calling you fascists, stop being fascists. If you want people to be nice, say nice things about you, don't be so mean to them. It's pretty simple. I mean, we're just calling it as we see it at this point. You're sending out masked thugs to rip people off the street and throw them in unmarked vans to deport them to foreign gulags in which they can be tortured. I'm sorry if pointing that out hurts your fee-fees. Just reminds me of that old, again, the thing about, men are afraid women will laugh at them. Women are afraid men will kill them. All these fascists are afraid we're laughing at them because we are. I mean, just this week, we had Tom Homan, the human thumb, who's running our Gestapo, caught on camera. The Biden administration, and understand, this whole thing, how this went down, didn't directly involve Tom Homan. The Biden administration's FBI was engaged in a counterintelligence operation, like foreign actors kind of stuff. And when looking at the foreign actors trying to influence our government, that's when they found this corruption going the way of Tom Homan. So they set up a sting. They literally brought him $50,000 cash in a paper bag. And he took it. I'm surprised the bag didn't have the $sign written on it, like a cartoon. Took the bribe on camera in exchange, quid pro quo for whatever. Offering contracts to the agents. I don't know what it was. Doesn't matter. Open corruption. But you don't want us to say, to demonize that. You've got the ICE detention center up in Chicago, in suburban Chicago, that's been protested for days. These people have been tear gassed. They've been beaten. One of them is Kat Abigaili, who's running for Congress there in Illinois. She's been picked up and body slammed 2 or 3 times on camera. This has been forwarded across all the social media networks by the right-wingers who are laughing at it. Laura Ingraham on her show the other day. Good job, ICE, for slamming her on the ground. Fuck around and find out. But it's us who have the problem with the political violence. It's the left that celebrates the political violence, allegedly. We're getting reports now that alligator Alcatraz that they're having to shut down thanks to the native tribe that sued over it. They're shutting down that alligator Alcatraz, our little concentration camp down there in the swamp, the Everglades. They're finding lots of people missing. A lot of people went in, didn't come out. Some 2/3 of the detainees at that concentration camp in the swamp are missing, which reminds me of the line from the old Jerry Reed song, Amos Moses. Wonder where the Louisiana sheriff went to. Awful easy to disappear bodies in an alligator-laden swamp. And I would not be surprised if we find out in the coming years that we've actually done our own little Holocaust down there. They just went and fed people to the alligators. I wouldn't doubt it a second. Then what else has the fascists been up to that we're not supposed to call them fascists because it hurts their feelings? Oh, yeah. A 4th boat has been extrajudicially blown up in international waters outside of Venezuela because the United States says they're drug runners. There's no trial. There's no evidence. There's no arrest. There's no court. There's no due process. We just saw a boat and said, hey, that's a drug boat. We blow it up 4 times now. We've killed 19 people over this. Just murdered them in open waters. And you know, there were trials in Nuremberg for this shit. German naval commanders who did time or were executed over this shit, murdering people in international waters. Which, by the way, isn't that political violence? I would think that if a nation state extrajudicially kills people in international waters, that could be a form of political violence. That's not something we ought to celebrate on the left.
And I was talking to Secretary Hegseth, and you know what he said? He said, you know what, Mr. Vice President? We don't see any of these drug boats coming into our country. They've completely stopped. And I said, I know why. I would stop too. Hell, I wouldn't go fishing right now in that area of the world.
We had the Navy just blow up some people. Isn't that funny? Yeah, celebrating political violence on the left, That was Vice President J.D. Vance leading a crowd of right-wingers in red MAGA hats to laugh about the extrajudicial killing of people in boats in international waters. But yeah, we're too tough on the right. We got to consider their feelings. We had Donald Trump this week in what was supposedly, I think he was meant to send a direct message, but he actually posted it openly on his truth toilet, egging on his hand-picked attorney general, the one he got after Matt Gaetz was too odious even for the Senate to pass, Pam Bondi, egging her on to go after his political opponents because they had to drop some cases. They couldn't find enough evidence to go after, I guess it was Letitia James, or was it the mortgage lady? I forget which. But their made-up cases aren't working. And Trump sends a pretty clear message that if you don't manufacture some evidence, if you don't make the crime fit, I'm going to replace you with someone that will. So we just have this open, naked corruption and bribery and assassination and murder and death. We've got the vaccine councils now saying they're not going to approve the COVID-19 shot for everyone. Going to reduce the recommendations for childhood vaccinations. Political acts that are directly going to lead to the death of innocent people. But it's us on the left who have a problem with glorifying political violence. Today I'm going to take a look at another blast from the past that's rearing its ugly head here in the United States of America, and that is the return of Jim Crow, the apartheid, the segregation, and the terrible treatment of African Americans and other minorities in this country that was prevalent from the end of Reconstruction in 1877 through the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. The apartheid system they had to live under, the colored water fountains and sitting in the back of the bus, all that kind of stuff is making its way back into American culture by these right-wing MAGA mission from God Christo-fascist freaks who believe they're ascendant, they're in power, and now they can just let their freak racism flag fly. We take you to a train, an MTA train. I think this was stopped in Massachusetts, although it's unclear from the reporting. The man was on his way to Connecticut, and this is the scene when the cops are called on him for his alleged misbehavior in the train.
One black dude on the train because this white woman said she didn't like the way I was sitting on the train. So you call the police. You call the police to arrest the one black dude on the train. I haven't done anything illegal.
Let's go.
I haven't done anything illegal. I haven't done anything illegal. I am sitting on a train and one white woman didn't like my presence. Resisting what? Resisting what? What are you trying to arrest me for? I was sitting on a train. I was sitting on a train and you're trying to arrest me for what? Can I not even know what you're trying to arrest me for? Because a white woman, this white woman, resisting what? Am I being arrested? I'm going to arrest the one black dude.
That's the sound of Alex O'Keefe, an African-American man who's also an award-winning screenwriter who's done work for that hit show The Bear on FX, as well as writing speeches for Senator Elizabeth Warren. And according to the report from this guy on his Instagram account, he was arrested on the MTA train to Connecticut, pulled off, handcuffed, and detained because an old white woman got on the train, immediately pointed at me, and told me how to correct how I was sitting. Yes, this old white Karen had a problem with him, I don't know, slouching, man-spreading. Maybe he had his feet kicked up on the chair or something. I don't know. But this old white woman felt that she had the right to tell this black man how to sit on the train. So when he refused, he continues, she went to the conductor and complained. The conductor called the police and stopped the train. While waiting for the police to arrive, the old Karen's friend said to him, quote, "You're not the minority anymore." So O'Keefe continues saying, quote, "The police told me to leave the train. I refused and asked what I was doing illegally. They said I was disturbing the peace by not leaving the train. They pulled me off the train and arrested me without even talking to the Karen who reported the one black person on the train. On the platform, the police detained me and interrogated me. Only black folks stayed nearby to record the arrest. When I demanded a lawyer and reminded them that they didn't even take a statement from the woman who complained, they eventually released me." So the cops get the call from the conductor and just go and pull the black guy off the train and then arrest him for the crime of resisting arrest, which I love this when cops do this. They pull you over, they interrogate you, they detain you, and you say, "What am I being arrested for?" And they say, "Resisting arrest." Okay, resisting the arrest for what? What crime did I commit that you were trying to arrest me for that I then resisted? And it's the crime of resisting arrest. It's the circular logic kind of going there, right? So I'm glad he didn't get officially busted or charged with anything, but imagine just going about your day sitting on a train and someone comes on that train, doesn't like the way you're sitting and calls the cops, and then the cops actually affect you, not her. They don't even go and talk to her at all. The conductor doesn't even try to reduce the escalation of this situation. This is Jim Crow. This is what racism is, folks. Racism is a system in which this can happen. A lot of times, we hear these right-wingers talking about reverse racism. Oh, the reverse racism is out of control, which is always weird to me because I would think like the reverse of racism would be inclusion, isn't it? Isn't the reverse of racism accepting all people? No, what they mean by reverse racism is that it's racism against white people. You're being racist against white people. Folks, you can't be racist against white people. It's impossible. At least in this country, you cannot be racist against white people. Oh, you can be prejudiced against white people. You can be bigoted against white people. But you can't be racist against white people. You know why? Because racism is prejudice plus power. So yes, a black person could be prejudiced against white people, but there is not a system in place that supports that prejudice. There's not a system in place that weaponizes that prejudice. Get where I'm going here? All that white old lady had to do was complain that a black man wasn't sitting properly. And the whole system kicked right into gear, didn't it? Another area where the right-wing MAGAs, on their mission from God, are starting to overtake our secular culture happened in Virginia. This is a case where you got this volunteer soccer league, this youth soccer league in Virginia. And all these kids running around kicking the soccer ball. They all have these little soccer uniforms, the little jerseys, right? So this volunteer coach asked his players to hand in their jerseys, and then he went and added to those jerseys a Bible verse, like John 14:6 or John 3:16 or whatever. Then all the kids are running around the soccer field with all these jerseys on, with all these Bible verses on. Excuse me? What is it about youth soccer that makes you think you have the right to be proselytizing your religion to others? What about the kid that wants to join the youth soccer league, sees all the other kids running around with Bible verses on him? He's Muslim. He's a Muslim kid. Is he going to get his Quranic verses on his jersey? Going to let that happen? Probably not. How about the Sikh kid? The Sikh kid getting his stuff? How about the Jewish kid? They can put some Torah verses on there. How about the Zoroastrians or the Baha'i? Your religious beliefs belong in your church. This is a county-run organization. This is involving taxpayer dollars and the public. These Christians with their idea that, well, most people are Christian. Most people I know are Christian. We're a Christian nation. Everybody loves Christianity. Let's say, what's the problem with putting Christian stuff everywhere? The problem is we have a First Amendment. We have a separation of church and state. We have this understanding that we can't all get along in this country if one of our religions is superior to all the others. But they just don't get it. From the coach up there in Washington State who won the Supreme Court case that allowed him to pray with the football players on the 50-yard line after the game. This inculcation into Christianity, this presentation of Christianity as supreme, harms everyone who's not Christian by implying it's the government's point of view that your religion isn't as good. Your religion isn't the right one. Your religion isn't the one for this country. And from that, people will infer, I don't belong here. I'm not worthy here. Or, I need to shut up about my religion and just accept theirs. That's the country they want, folks. That's why all this Schumer and Jeffries wanting to negotiate in good faith makes me so angry. This is a holy war. They're on a crusade. They're on a mission from God. There's no negotiating with those kind of people. There's only defeating them. There's only vanquishing them in a peaceful manner, in a manner prescribed by law, of course, because we're not the ones that want to kill our enemies. We're the ones that want to get along. We're the ones that want to include everyone. And the Jim Crow has gotten really bad in Mississippi. In Mississippi, they found a 21-year-old black man hanging from a tree. And the local law enforcement says, oh, well, there's no signs of foul play. Must have been suicidal. Must have committed suicide. No signs of foul play. Folks, black people do not hang themselves from trees, even if they are suicidal. Within black culture, a black person hanging themselves from a tree knows they would be causing trauma to the culture, to other black people. A black person who would go and hang themselves from a tree would be doing so in order to hurt black people. And there's no indication from this kid's life and his friends and family that there was anything like that going on. And it seems like we hear a story like this every year or so. Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. Some poor black kid got suicidal and hung himself from a tree. Or the other one I love, I've reported on a few of these in my drug war career. The black kid who's handcuffed in the car, in the back of the squad car, and somehow got loose from his handcuffs and somehow had a gun that we didn't find and somehow shot himself. A lot of that going on. Jim Crow's alive and well. And one more example here, just to give you an idea what Republicans think of black people. So you got Abigail Spanberger. She's running for governor in Virginia. And from what I've seen in the polls, she's doing quite well, most likely to become the next governor of Virginia. But she's running against a person named Winsome, who I believe is a Republican. And this is the radio ad they're playing in Virginia against Abigail Spanberger.
You see Bougie talking about Abigail Spanberger? Man, Bougie crazy. He thinks Spanberger is a sandwich.
You boys all best get your heart right and vote for Winsome Earl Sears.
Winsome will build on what Governor Youngkin has done, slashing taxes and putting that money in all our pockets.
Opportunities in Virginia have never been better. Winsome is a Marine, and she'll keep that train rolling.
That's what I told Bougie. You know Abigail Spanberger will turn the Commonwealth into D.C. South. Higher taxes on working folks. Boys playing girl sports. Who knows what else?
Winsome Earl Sears will fight for us. She'll stop these higher costs from cutting into our business.
Winsome knows what matters. Good paying job, roof over your head, and good schools for your kids.
It'd be a damn shame to go backwards now.
And that's exactly where Spanberger would take us. I ain't voting for no sandwich.
Winsome Earl Sears for governor.
I am Winsome Earl Sears, candidate for governor, and this ad was paid for by Winsome for governor.
Wow, man. Just wow. I'm surprised Winsome isn't throwing in free watermelon and fried chicken. Normally, this is the time where you'd hear the country baseline, and I'd be telling you about all the reasons why you need to avoid the handmaid state and boycott Idaho. Now, with 76 reasons you can find at radicalruss.com/Idaho. But Idaho's off the hook a bit today because I wanted to pay attention to some stuff happening internationally. First off, well, this isn't international. You heard last week of Brian Kilmeade, who called for the involuntary lethal injection of homeless people. And he still has a job. Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel had to lose his seat for a joke that wasn't about Charlie Kirk, but Kilmeade gets to call on executing the homeless, not even apologizing until 4 days later, and then in his apology, didn't apologize for saying kill all the homeless. He basically said, well, you know, some of the homeless are veterans, and some of them, you know, they're not violent and mentally ill. So yeah, you can openly call on killing the homeless, but it's us on the left that have the problem with political violence. And in the meantime, since that utterance from Kilmeade, there were 2 incidences at homeless encampments, Hoovervilles, if you will, Trumpvilles. 2 homeless encampments in Minnesota were shot at. And they don't have any suspects. They haven't caught anybody. I'm sure they're looking real hard, too. But, 2 homeless encampments shot out following rhetoric from the regime's favored media organ. And, it's us on the left that have the problem with political violence. But I wanted to bring this up because I saw some international news about homelessness. And it has to do with the nation of Finland, the Scandinavian nation of Finland. And it's pretty amazing because in Finland, the number of homeless people has fallen sharply. Back in 2008, they used to have the tent villages and encampments just like we do, in the parks, in the capital of Helsinki. And homeless people that are making makeshift homes and exposed to harsh weather conditions and leaving garbage, the same sort of problems we have with homelessness in America. And they tried short-term shelters. They tried emergency shelters. And the problem that happens with homelessness is if you don't have a place to live, you can't get a job. And if you don't have a job, you can't get a place to live. And so people are trapped in this endless cycle. In 2008, the Finnish government decided to do something about this, and they came up with a policy called Housing First. Here's the incredibly radical solution to homelessness that they proposed. Give them a house. Yeah, that's it. Give them a house. Give them a place to live. This non-governmental organization, a nonprofit called Why Foundation in Finland, they get subsidies from the government to construct new apartment buildings, to buy and refurbish old apartment buildings, restore existing apartments, 1 to 2 room apartments, and they just give them the apartment. No strings attached. What has happened in our world, because we live in this America Calvinist, work principle thing, that, okay, well, we'll put you in a temporary shelter, and then you have to get a job, and then you can't use drugs, and you can't have a pet, and you have all these rules, and blah, blah, blah. And what do you know? It doesn't work. Here, Finland, they just give you a house. They give you an apartment. Here, live here. And they offer counseling, and they offer assistance to get jobs and government benefits like food assistance or healthcare assistance. And what they found is 4 out of 5 of their homeless people are no longer homeless. They escape homelessness. 80% success rate. 81, something like that. So you give them a house. What do you know? They've got an address to be able to put down on a job application. They've got a mailbox to receive a check or a benefit. 4 out of 5 of the homeless people were able to continue living in that house, to be able to pay rent and lead a more stable life. Finland is the only country in the European Union where housing has gone down. In 2017, they had about 1,900 homeless people. They're down to less than 1,000 by 2019. Now, yeah, it costs money, but it costs less than the effects of homelessness. When you start adding up all the police calls, all the cleanups, the sanitations, the trips to the emergency room, the health care, all the assistance benefits, all these things are reduced by just giving them a house. It's cheaper to house them than to incarcerate them and then to punish them, to mistreat them. They did pilot projects for this in Utah. Did the same damn thing in Utah. They did a pilot project where they just gave people a house and they limited it to a certain number. I think it was 1,000 or so many. And out of those people, just about the same results. About 4 out of 5 were able to get out of it. And then the 1 out of 5 that can't get out, well, they oftentimes move out because they want to stay with a friend or family, or they couldn't afford the rent. But even if they try the free house and leave it later or go back to the streets, they're allowed to come back and get another free house. I know this is crazy for a lot of people out there. They're thinking, how you can't just give it to them. Why, they'll just do drugs in there. Okay. So they're not doing drugs out on the street corner. Isn't that better? But so many Americans can't get their mind past this idea of the deserving poor, of means testing. We got to make sure they deserve it. We got to make sure they're doing it right. We've got to hold their hands. We've got to paternalize them. We've got to control them to make sure they're poor in the right way, or else they're, quote unquote, wasting our tax dollars. It's never a waste to try to help a fellow human being. What the hell do we have a government for in the first place, anyway? One other international note comes to us from France, where the First Lady, Brigette Macron, is going to court to provide medical and photographic evidence that she is a woman. Yeah. The First Lady of France is going to court to prove that she is a woman because Candace Owens, the African-American commentator, the right-winger, has been doing this transvestigation. She's been transvestigating the First Lady of France.
Brigitte Macron was actually born Jean-Michel Trogneau. That is the person that you are seeing in this photo here on the far left. I would stake my entire professional career on the fact that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was born a man.
So, yeah, Brigitte Macron is suing Candace Owens for defamation, millions of dollars in the suit, and is going to court to prove that she is actually a woman, which brings up a couple things. First of all, is it defamatory to be called trans? Like, how is that defamatory? I guess it's untrue, right? It's a lie. But does it defame someone? I'm reminded of when Lady Gaga commented on this. She had people early in her career that there's that rumor that Lady Gaga is trans, and she never addressed it. And basically her point was, so what if I was? Like she said, I didn't address it because it sounds like if I had to defend it, I'd be saying that being accused of being trans is a bad thing. So good on Lady Gaga there. So I don't know if it's a good or bad thing that Brigitte Macron is suing here because, on the one hand, it's not defamatory to be trans. But on the other hand, people like Candace Owens need to be slapped down for just telling these out-and-out lies that are designed not only to inflame, our feelings against France or liberalism or whatever, but against trans people in general. It's time to stop picking on the trans people. We had Representative Ronnie Jackson, the former Dr. Feelgood from the Trump administration, the one that was handing out pills like candy, and the one who proclaimed that President Trump is ultra super fit and 6'3" and 210 and whatever. Yeah, that guy, Ronnie Jackson, the drunk. Anyway, Ronnie Jackson's saying we should institutionalize transgender people. They need to be institutionalized. They got a mental health issue. Nancy Mace is saying basically the same kind of stuff, except she's throwing the T-word slur in while she does it. All of this vitriol, all of this anger against transgender people has led to this psychosis in America regarding the transgender issue. And it comes up in the form of this poll from YouGov. YouGov went and asked people, what is the proportion of transgender people in the United States of America? What percentage of America is trans? Now, I know the answer to that. It's like, 1%, less than 1%-ish. It's real low. The YouGov poll answer? 21%. Are you kidding me? The average American out there thinks that when they're in a room with 4 other people, one of those people must be trans? Well, I know I'm not trans, and 1 out of 5 people is trans, so they really think that 1 out of every 5 people in America is trans. That if they themselves, a cis person, was in a room with 4 other people, out of those 5 people, 1 of them has to be trans. Oh my God. Really? I don't know what this is more indicative of. The fact that Americans have no idea how many transgender people there are, that Americans are innumerate, that Americans are too swayed by the talking heads and all of the vitriol being spewed against trans people in this country. But no, trans people are not 1 out of 5. Trans people are more likely 1 out of 100. Today in the Radical Rant, I want to talk about why are we America? And specifically, I want to address the right-wingers out there that say that those of us on the left hate God and hate America. That was the words of the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Lieutenant Governor Patrick down there, saying we hate God and hate America. Well, first of all, I can't hate God because it's hard for me to hate things that don't exist, right? So I don't know if that counts as hate. I guess it does from their point of view. Me denying the existence of a supreme deity counts as hate in their book. But no, I don't hate God. I don't hate the people that worship God. In fact, I'm in love with one. I am damn near married to a very Christian woman, one who actually read the Bible and follows the teachings of Christ. So no, I don't hate God. And as far as hating America, no, I'm afraid that's projection, my man, because we on the left love America. We love it way more than the people on the right do. Way more. Now explain why. We love America because we believe in its founding ideals. Not the people who founded America, not their issues like owning slaves and committing genocide against Native Americans and keeping women subservient. But we believe in the words they wrote down. We, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. That's why we wrote down a constitution. That's why we became a country, to fulfill those 6 needs of the people. To form a more perfect union does not mean domination, does not mean making everyone the same, making everyone believe the same and live the same. The very definition of having a union means it must consist of disparate things, else there's no need for them to unionize. If they were all the same thing, they're already together. So to form a more perfect union means to find out how black people, white people, Asian people, Latin people, disabled people, all people can get along. Christians, atheists, Jews, Muslims. How can we all get along? That's a more perfect union. To establish justice, a justice that applies equally to all without fear or favor. The right clearly does not believe in establishing justice when they're allowing people to openly collect bribes and not prosecuting them on that, when they're blowing boats out of the water extrajudicially, when they're sending people to foreign prisons without due process. That's not a people interested in establishing justice. Ensuring domestic tranquility, keeping the peace among the people, while they continue to fan the flames of division, while they continue to say they killed Charlie Kirk, and they don't know what they've got coming, and they have activated an army. That's not calling for domestic tranquility. That's calling for civil war. the very opposite of domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense? Well, the right's pretty good on that one. They're all about funding the military and the police. But providing the common defense means defending ourselves not just against enemies foreign, but also domestic. It means having safe neighborhoods, knowing that you won't be operating your ice cream cart one day and then the next day without any warrant, without any due process, without any probable cause, without being able to identify who it is that's snatching you off the street and what car they're putting you in and where they're taking you. That's not defending the commons. That's attacking the commons. Promote the general welfare. We're America because we want to promote the general welfare. We want everyone to do better. We want to help everyone get along. That means providing food, clothing, housing, shelter, jobs, health care. But not to the right. To the right, it's yo-yo. You're on your own. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Never mind, you don't have any boots. Secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. To make sure this remains a free country where you can say what you think and believe what you want without fear that you're going to lose your job because a government bureaucrat didn't like what you had to say. We on the left love America because we believe in those ideals of all men, all people being created equal in the eyes of their creator, endowed with certain liberties that among them, not limited to them, but among them, are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We believe that. They don't. They believe that if a transgender person is miserable in their existence, miserable living as the gender a doctor told them they were when they were born, the right doesn't want that person to be able to pursue the happiness of living as the other gender. They don't believe in that pursuit of happiness. We love America because many of us, not myself being cisgender, white, straight male, but many of us could not exist without an America that supports the rights of the minority, that recognizes the civil liberties of all people, that gives birthright citizenship to all who are born here, that gives due process to all who are residing here. We're the ones that took these words written by white slave-owning men and through picketing and marching and voting and sometimes dying, forced those white landowning straight males to live up to the words they wrote down, that we are all created equally, all imbued with our Creator certain inalienable rights. We're the ones who've been standing up for America these 249 years, and it's the people on the right who have been trying to tear it down for just as long. The people on the right who were the royalists who sided with the British crown. The people on the right who were the slavers who fomented an insurrection in 1860 to fight for the right to continue owning and subjugating black people. The Confederates were on the right. The Nazi allied people of the early 20s and 30s in America who fought the labor movement, who stood along with Charles Lindbergh and praised Adolf Hitler. They're on the right. The Ku Klux Klan that formed in response to Reconstruction in order to establish and maintain Jim Crow apartheid throughout the South. Those men were on the right when they were burning their crosses, engaging in political violence. And it's existing now in the MAGA movement. The MAGA movement that seeks to subvert every bit of our Constitution except the Second Amendment. Every bit. First Amendment, freedom of the press. Well, we've seen how that's gone. The press has been bought up by the oligarch buddies of the right, the Jeff Bezos and the Larry Ellisons, buying up CNN, CBS, ABC, Nexstar, Sinclair, Clear Channel, sacking PBS and NPR, soon to buy CNN, Warner Brothers Discovery. They don't like our First Amendment for that. The First Amendment that provides that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Oh, they're all about respecting the establishment of religion. They're going to respectfully establish the Christian religion as the one we all have to obey, the one that sets our laws with regard to abortion and gay people and trans people. That's their state religion, antithetical to the First Amendment. I saw Laura Loomer, who has the right-wing harpy who's got the ear of the president. Laura Loomer, that plastic freak, who is noting the membership in the United States Congress of a Muslim member, saying, why is there any Muslims in Congress? What the hell's wrong with that? Clearly forgetting the part in the Constitution that says no religious test shall issue. That religion shall have nothing to do with whether or not you can be a representative in this government. They don't like that. First Amendment that protects our right to protest, to assemble peaceably, to address the government for our grievances. But they'll kettle you. They'll shock you. They'll shoot pepper balls at you. They'll shoot tear gas at you, which, by the way, tear gas is an abortifacient. Did you know that? If you're a pregnant woman and you get tear gassed, it can very likely cause a miscarriage. So yeah, pro-life, unless there's some pregnant women protesting. The Fourth Amendment protecting us from unwarranted search and seizure, that's gone. They can just pick you up off the street because you speak Spanish, because you speak with an accent, because you got brown skin, because you're hanging out at a Home Depot. Fifth Amendment, our guarantee to due process? Ha! Whole bunch of people in that alligator Alcatraz never got any due process, and now 2/3 of them are missing. Just missing. No idea where they're at. Our Sixth Amendment right. Our Sixth Amendment right in criminal cases to face our accusers and to know what we've been charged with. Hard to face your accuser when that accuser is some ICE agent wearing a mask who was probably a Proud Boy 3 months ago. To know what we're being charged with? You mean like the man on the train, Alex? The guy pulled off the train for resisting the arrest of being resisting arrest? Not knowing what he was charged with. Our Seventh Amendment right. Our Seventh Amendment right says that we can bring any lawsuit in civil court over any matter worth $20 or more. Unless it involves a gun. Can't sue over guns. Can't sue a gun manufacturer for your kid getting shot up at a school. Eighth Amendment right. The proscription on cruel and unusual punishment. No cruel and unusual punishment, they say, while they ship you off to a torture gulag in El Salvador. Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in this Constitution of certain rights is not meant to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Yeah, I've got the Ninth Amendment memorized like some people have the Second Amendment memorized, because to me, the Ninth Amendment is the most important amendment in the Constitution, and it is so overlooked. What that amendment basically says is, hey, just because we wrote down a bunch of rights that the government has and that the states have doesn't mean that you don't also have a whole bunch of personal rights. And what right could be more personal than the control of your own body? Nowhere in the federal Constitution does it give the right to the federal government to control women's bodies. Nowhere does it give that right to the states to control women's bodies. But here they've gone with the Dobbs decision and eliminated the right to abortion. That is clearly a Ninth Amendment right, and they're coming after birth control too. Another Ninth Amendment right. The 10th Amendment. Oh, God. Remember when they were all for states' rights? When it was, states' rights to have slaves. States' rights to ban gay marriage. Oh, they were all for states' rights back then. But now, when it's states' right to not be invaded by some other state's National Guard, so much for the states' rights support among the right. These are the people that say, we don't love America. The people who are violating the 13th Amendment, engaging in slavery. How do you say they're engaging in slavery? Well, the 13th Amendment does have an exception. You can engage in slavery so long as someone's been convicted of a crime. But those people in Seacott being made to work in the gulag, who were deported with no due process, have not been convicted of a crime, and they're being forced to engage in slavery. 14th Amendment, our equal protection rights. Everybody gets treated equally under the law from state to state. We see how that's not happening. Equal protection being denied, again, for those people who might be immigrants, or ICE just might think they're immigrants. They were speaking Spanish, after all. The 15th Amendment, guaranteeing the descendants of slaves, guaranteeing black people the right to vote. We see how that is being subverted through the various gerrymandering schemes, which our Supreme Court has decided, well, we can't outlaw partisan gerrymandering. You can make a district as Republican as you want. Well, turns out lots of Republicans are white and lots of Democrats are black, and so you end up creating all these Republican districts that dilute the black vote. Like what they're doing in Missouri right now to take away the one Democratic district that represents Kansas City, gerrymander the hell out of that to give Trump another seat for the 2026 midterm. So denying the black vote under the 15th Amendment. And the 22nd Amendment, limiting a president to 2 terms. You know they're eager to violate that one too. So, looking through our Constitution, looking through our Declaration of Independence, I've given you at least 20 different things there where the right clearly does not love America the way the left loves America. I guess we're still okay with women's right to vote. That's the 19th Amendment. They haven't eliminated that yet. But we hear from the right. We hear from the people in the mega churches. We hear from that Christian sect up in Moscow, Idaho, where they believe the 19th Amendment was a mistake. The women's right to vote was a mistake. We should vote by household. We should all have a household vote. And the man and the woman, they can discuss who they should vote for, and then the man will decide. And I'm sure the woman putting in her 2 cents will make a huge, huge influence on him. They want to get rid of the 19th Amendment. They're actually openly saying so. We still have the 26th Amendment, I guess. If you're under 21, you can still vote. Guess that's safe for now. And I guess the 3rd Amendment's okay. They're not trying to quarter any soldiers in our home during peacetime. Although, who knows for the next couple of years. And, of course, the 21st Amendment, you can still have all the booze you want. And the 2nd Amendment, you can still have all the guns you like. That's all they like of the Constitution. They like Article 1, the president. They like the 21st Amendment, booze is legal. They like the First Amendment part about religion, but only the second half of that part. And speaking of second halves, they only like the second half of the Second Amendment as well. So spare me this whining that the left doesn't love America, because looking at our Constitution, looking at our Declaration of Independence, it is clear to me that it is the left that loves America and what America could possibly be. It is the left that is always bending that universal arc toward justice, that moral arc of the universe. It doesn't bend on its own. It bends from a lot of effort from those of us on the left, trying to turn America into what its white slave-owning founders said it could be. Holy crap, that's all the time we've got today. I've gone over 2 hours again. They just keep making so much news, you guys. I can't help myself. The Radical Russ Show is produced, directed, researched, written, recited, posted, and catered by me, Radical Russ Belville, and governed by Creative Commons Share-alike licensing. News clips and social media posts are reproduced under fair use copyright laws for commentary and analysis. My main theme is We Love the Herb by Herbal Nation, and interstitial music is by me and my bass and drum machine. Which brings us to our post-credits scene, and I got to give you the football updates. First of all, Idaho State University won this weekend 90-0 against Division II Lincoln, California. And that's not the thing that was notable to me. What's notable to me is they came back from halftime. ISU was up 69-0. And the two coaches agreed for the second half to only play 8-minute quarters. 8-minute quarters. So from 69-0, it ended up being 90-0, right? So they scored another 21 points in the 2 8-minute quarters. I'm pissed. They should have kept a 15-minute quarters. They denied us a possible 100-point game here. I didn't even know there was a mercy rule for college football. Speaking of mercy rules, looking at me and my lady love in our football season sweepstakes, at the prep level, my Nampa High School Bulldogs are still winless, 0-5. They lost at home 55-27 against Bishop Kelly, while her Madison Grant Argyles in Indiana are 4-1. They crushed Elwood 42-7. Poor Elwood. At the college level, Boise State got their first conference win, going up to 2-1 with a win at Air Force 49-37, while my Lady Love's number 6 Oregon Ducks are 3-0, still undefeated, with their win at the significantly reduced in interest Civil War with Oregon State, one of the two remaining members of the Pac-2. At Autzen Stadium, the Ducks won 41-7 this last weekend. And then the pro level, my undefeated Green Bay Packers suffered their first loss by giving the game away, losing 13-10 at the Cleveland Browns. It was sad, folks. They they missed it. They got a game-winning field goal blocked. They got an interception that set up the tying touchdown. It was just bad play by the Packers all around. Meanwhile, my Lady Love's Indianapolis Colts maintain their unbeaten streak at 3-0, winning 41-20 at the Tennessee Titans. That means for the season, my prep, college, and pro teams are 4-7. My Lady Love's prep, college, and pro teams are 10-1. Lady Love really kicking my ass this year. Also, since everyone else is doing it, I formally recognize the state of Palestine. Yeah, apparently the United Kingdom and Canada have joined other nations around the world in recognizing the nation of Palestine currently being bombed into submission in the Gaza Strip, which I will never fail to remind you, the Gaza Strip is about the size of Boise's Treasure Valley. Like, if you put the north part of the Gaza Strip in Boise and the south part of the Gaza Strip hits about Caldwell, the width of it is about between US 20 in the north and I-84 in the south, and then it dips into a bit of Nampa and Lake Lowell. So when you hear about this massive devastation, the killing of tens of thousands of people, the calling on millions of them to move from one place to another on foot, keep in mind we're talking about a place the size of Boise, Idaho. The UN, by the way, has voted to declare the war in Gaza a genocide, as most people could recognize. I don't have anything to tell you about on our hashtag Tubi TV night this week. I had far too much to do, but I did come upon this video, and I've posted a link to it. I'm torn on this one because it's AI, and I should hate AI for all the plagiarism and intellectual property theft and destruction of the environment for the server farms and all that stuff. But on the other hand, this one's really funny. So I hope you can forgive me this one. It's, I don't know what to call it. It's Disco Star Trek. It is a disco video with AI renditions of Star Trek characters from the original series and the Next Generation and Voyager, I believe. Oh, I guess DS9 too, because Quark's in it. It's hilarious. When you see Spock disco dancing with a 70s porn star mustache, you'll never unsee it. I encourage you to check out my links on the page today. It's making me laugh now. You can contact me by email at radicalruss@gmail.com. Call my message line at 877-RUSS-420. That's 877-877-420. And reach me on social media on Blue Sky as @radicalruss.com and nowhere else. You can support this podcast financially by donating to Radical Russ on Venmo, Rad Russ on Cash App, or via PayPal on my website at radicalruss.com. Get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, my website, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next week, take care of each other.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.
Workers taken to hospital after FBI uses furnace to burn seized meth. Supervisors recognized that something was amiss when they found all the small appliances in the break room had been disassembled.